Oh, that's too good. All right. Well, hey, I reminisced. Obviously, I ran around this track. I thought about joining you or having you join me, but you don't want to see me run around this track anymore. But I proved to myself that I could still do it. We had some great memories here, and my goodness, that was coming up on, what, 14 years ago? It's been a long time, and I think back to my times when I was the head track coach at Malone University and had no idea that I would be standing here 14 years later as a pastor, as a minister of Jesus, and a person who is working with a church now, coaching people to do life together. And so I just want to remind you, I'm working on a sermon series coming up at our church in the book of Ruth. Ruth is a pretty tragic story, actually. But it's a story that exemplifies the fact that God knows the end of our story, even when we don't know the end of our story. Does that make sense to you? God knows the end of your story. God knows that there's chapters in your life that are being written that you don't know about yet, right? And I stood here as a head track and field coach, and I think we even won a National Christian College championship here it was a crazy scoring error, and another team was given the trophy, and I was so upset. Our guys especially were so upset. And then all of a sudden on the way home, we discovered that the scoring error had happened, and we ended up winning. And so it was just, and those of you who are on the team, you remember that. It's a really weird thing that happens in track and field. But I had no idea that I would, end up here all these years later, talking to you through Facebook, and there's some hard times that some of you might be going through right now. We've all gone through hard times, but I want you to hold on to the fact that there's chapters in your story that are still being written. And that if there's anybody in this universe that we can trust, that knows the end of our story, that knows how it's going to be written out, it's God, right? God knows the end of our story. And we can trust him in that. There's scriptures that remind us of that he's going to work all things together for our good. That's found in Romans. That he will never leave us or forsake us, right? That's Jesus himself speaking in the Gospels. I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. I just want to encourage you this morning that if you're going through a hard time, I want you to remember that God is with you, that he has a plan, and that he's going to execute that plan. If you remember Ruth, what a tragic story at the first, right? Her husband dies, her father-in-law dies. She decides to travel back to Naomi's homeland, but she meets the kinsman redeemer, the person Boaz that will become her next husband. And I love the end of that story because Boaz and Ruth go on to have a baby named Obed. And Obed then has a baby later in his life named Jesse. And Jesse has a son named David. Ruth is great-grandmother to King David. What an awesome genealogy. There's a dark part of that story, but I am so excited to encourage you today to hang on. Pray that God works his plan and that you will trust that he's writing the story. Thanks again for watching today. I'm so excited. I'm in my meetings here at the university, Taylor University.